Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt
And
Roast.
I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
This is our Poker Face Season 2, Episode 6 reaction and review. Before we even dive deep into the episode, we have to talk about the title here. It's Sloppy Joseph, and that is the
Oh.
most macabre and gross, but also wonderful title for this episode, which I also think is wonderful.
Yeah, besides what happened to poor gerbil Joseph,
Yeah.
it was such a good episode. I really like how when we were first getting into this episode, you only saw it from the kids' perspective. You didn't see any of the adults, you didn't see any of their faces. It was just like an arm, a hand, a leg, nothing else. It was really cool the way that they did that.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of other people out there probably had this feeling, but it reminded me a lot of watching the Peanuts cartoons when the adults, you would kind of see an outline of them, but they're wah, 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 and
Yeah,
that
they're
would
not important.
no, it's like, the kids are the star of the show, and it was just like, okay, that's shot really well because you're allowing the kids to have like this three-dimensional personality that we often don't see on television, but then you're throwing Charlie into this, and then she is a fish out of water. It's just every single part of this episode, from the case to the way in which the case was solved to the idea that this child and Stephanie has like this much power. It is diabolical, but it was just so well conceived. And in between this episode and last week, which I said was my favorite of the season,
Yeah.
I love both of these episodes so much. Like, I could watch these two again and again, and I don't think I'd ever get bored.
This season in general, besides the Gator Done episode, has been so solid, and it's rare that I know we're only in episode 6, but I mean, like, it feels like they're just putting out banger after banger after banger, and that's pretty rare when you have a pretty, decent sized season like Poker Face does this season.
Yeah, and I like how bold and also how confident the writers and producers are with this show, that I think a lot of other shows out there, especially on network TV, would never do a case where the murder
No.
victim of the week is not an actual person, and that you're dealing with something that what happened to Joseph is very sad, and we're all very, very upset about it. But the stakes here are a little bit different. It's not like Stephanie, as far as we know, is going to be locked up in prison for the rest of her life. It's a very different sort of episode, but it still works for the mold of this show.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have a lot to get into here about this week's episode of Poker Face, but
Mhm.
before we get further into it, be sure to hit that subscribe button because, yeah, we are going to be here breaking down the rest of this season. We are also in the midst of breaking down Nine Perfect Strangers
Mhm.
Season 2 over on Hulu. Another very, very fun and very, very twisted show that is rolling out week after week. We're really enjoying that, and we highly suggest you check that out.
Dexter Resurrection is also just around the corner and, a few weeks at this point. So be sure to hit that subscribe, and it really helps us here at the channel. And also over on our Patreon, we are covering Murderbot. We are covering Criminal Minds Evolution Season 3. It's another great way to be able to support us here at the channel. And you get those reviews every single week, and it's the only place you can get them. So thank you so much to everyone who has joined.
Thank you guys. We very, very much appreciate that.
Okay, I want to actually start at the end of this episode.
Okay.
Because are we going to see Stephanie again? And the reason that I kind of asked that is because they really left it open ended. And I didn't know if they left it open ended because it was just kind of like a ha ha ha. But she leaves her this gold star that Charlie gets in her car that's basically like, when I grow up, I'm going to find you. And it feels a lot like Kill Bill, where, we saw the bride and in the very first one where, she killed the mother of this child, and then the child shows up and is like, oh my God. And the bride is like, yeah, when you're older, I know you're probably going to feel raw about this. I'll expect you to come and find me, sort of thing. And I was just like, it felt a little like this, but reversed, where the kid is just like, oh, you've, done all these things to me. You've exposed all my nefarious stuff. You have taken away all these things that are important to me. I'll find you when I'm older. So I'm kind of like, okay, if Poker Face goes on for many seasons, is it possible that Stephanie's going to grow up and we're going to see her down the road being like, I found you?
I really, really hope so.
Me
Like,
too.
I just think that would be very, very compelling, very, very interesting. Like, this is something that I've seen it happen in a couple of shows here or there, at least to the idea of like having the kids say something like this. It's sort of like the Alyssa Marie phenomenon. And I really just feel like here, Poker Face season 10, can we make it happen then? Is it, see, the great thing about this show is just that, like, the whole premise of it alone, there's no end in sight. Like, as long as
Yeah.
Natasha keeps wanting to do it and, the streaming service is happy with the ratings, and I sure hope they are, like, why not keep this rolling? But also, it doesn't even necessarily have to be that far, because the thing about kids, and, we were all kids once, is that when you say, when I grow up, or sort of when I'm older, that has so many different subjective meanings. Like, if you're a kid Stephanie's age, you might think that being 15 is all grown up, and that there's a
Yep.
way to sort of rope yourself back in there.
As soon as she turns 16 and gets her driver's license, she could easily be like, okay, and now it's time to hunt down Charlie. We're going to have that talk.
Yeah, it just feels like having a couple of adversaries for Charlie to sort of square off against down the road. I know this show is procedural, but even classic procedurals, they do still have enemies that turn up here or there that people do have to deal with. Like, I know I throw the Psych comparison out there a lot with this show because I love both of them, but like Mr. Yang on Psych was a great example of that. And it's like you can do the same thing here, but I think what makes Stephanie so interesting is just so much of her MO here and what happened to poor Joseph. It's all just tied into one thing, and that's her whole central premise of I just have to be the best
Mhm.
at everything. What does that turn into in a world where this, I don't know, gold star economy doesn't exist for her anymore?
Yeah, I mean, it's gold stars can be great and they can be helpful to get healthy competition going. But when you do have somebody who's not in a healthy competition and instead they're just like this, you're just feeding into that in a way that is going to end up helping to raise them to be this, but an adult where things are not going to go their way and they're going to end up doing something like this. Because as we all learn through childhood,
Yeah.
things will not always go your way. And this teacher purposefully tried to make sure that the spelling bee didn't go her way just so that she could learn that lesson so that when she grows up, it's okay if things don't work out sometimes. You know what I mean? You have to be able to balance both, but she did not balance it at all. Instead, it was just pure revenge on Elijah, who just happened to be able to spell abracadabra.
Yeah, okay. There's two things that I personally strongly dislike about when it comes to being a child and reward slash punishment systems. And I will start this off by saying I am not an educator. I am not a child psychologist. I don't know what works or doesn't work, but this whole system is just insanely unhealthy to me, because it's like not only are you rewarding somebody for constantly trying to be the best, and like there's a part of that that's good, you want people to
Sure,
strive for greatness,
of course.
but making it public in a way like this where it does turn into a competition, that's what gets it difficult. And it's like, if you're going to reward people, don't do it on some sort of like sliding public scale. It's sort of like, at the same time, I really hate a lot of the institutions where if somebody does something wrong, like the entire class gets punished. Like, I've been and dealt with that situation, because then it's
Yeah.
also creating competition. I just feel like, and I don't know if this would solve this because Stephanie may just be who she is. Why couldn't they just do a group thing where it's like, you, everyone in the class, if you all achieve these things together, you get a pizza party, because who doesn't love a pizza party?
Yeah, I feel like also if it's going on all year, the whole class
Yeah.
year, like that's great to be able to give a lot of opportunities for other kids to catch up. But if you're a teacher and I'm not an educator, but if I was a teacher and I knew that there was this one student that was just murdering everybody, it's not gonna really help bring up the confidence of anybody else who's like, oh, I got 10 gold stars. I feel really good about myself. No, I don't feel good about myself because Stephanie has 80 gold stars and there's no way to ever catch up. And while the teacher's kind of like, okay, this one's going to be worth 30, this is going to be worth 50, it doesn't seem to matter unless the teacher is sabotaging it.
I have a
It's just not working.
I have a sad admission to make at this point.
Okay.
When I was in fourth grade, I was kind of a little bit like Stephanie. Now, I did not do anything to the gerbil. The gerbil was fine. Nothing like that happened. But we had like our own version of a community in our fourth grade class. I was both the mayor of the class as well as the city
No, Mayor
manager.
Matt.
Mayor Matt ruled with an iron. No, Mayor Matt didn't actually do anything, but it was just like I always thought there was something special about these sort of things and I think a lot of that was just that I was very insecure and I got made fun of a lot. So it's like I was trying to find a way to counteract that. So I understand that part of Stephanie's psychology where she's clearly trying to get something out of these rewards to make herself feel special. And that could be for a number of different reasons.
Did anybody else have a class pet? Because that's not something that happened in my school. I don't know if it was just my particular school in Canada or if it's all schools in Canada. Maybe they don't want to have an animal that's in the school or something could happen to it or it's left overnight and it needs some sort of help, but there's nobody there. Like it seems to me like kind of a bad idea.
Okay, so there's a couple of different examples I can throw out here of this because there's a couple different lineations of class pet that I experienced throughout my childhood. There is, when I was like in 6th or 7th grade, that's where you go from just having like one teacher who covers everything to
Mhm.
a bunch of different teachers. I mean, that's how it works in Texas. I don't know how it works everywhere else, but like my science teacher in 7th grade had a bearded dragon, but the bearded dragon just lived in the science lab and, we only saw him for like an hour a day. But when I was in 5th grade, my 5th grade teacher did have a rabbit. And this rabbit was a part of the
Ooh.
classroom, and we saw. Yeah, I know. I think sentiments have changed over the years a lot when
Oh
it
my
comes to.
God. They just
The,
had a rabbit in a cage in a classroom?
I don't believe they were in a cage, if I remember right, but they were just kind of running around the classroom here or there. But the part of this that and I won't share all the details because I don't need to air out too much dirty laundry here. But there was something where the rabbit was allowed to go home with certain students after different days of the weeks or weekends. Or
God.
they got like a little guide as to how to take care of them. I was never allowed to do this, so it never really came up to me. But that's the experience that I have. And but the moral of this story is don't have a class pet like that.
Holy smokes, especially a rabbit. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm a rabbit mom. They are very difficult pets to take care of, like really difficult.
yeah.
They're not, I know there's a lot of pet stores that try to sell them off as like starter pets. They are extremely delicate pets. Even just feeding them is very like it is like a science. That's crazy, man.
I totally memory hold that entire experience until you asked the question about class pets.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we didn't have anything like that. Like at most we were given stuff like a little plant that we're, learning to take care of. I don't know if anybody else had the little egg experiment that you
Mhm.
had to take care of, but we didn't have live animals in our school. We definitely didn't have a rabbit at the
No,
school. Oh my God.
doesn't feel like the best idea in retrospect here.
And here we've got gerbils, and it didn't end up working out here either. I mean, like, yeah, later everyone was like, oh, look, Joseph's actually alive with this little bandage on his head, which was extremely cute.
Yeah.
And that they just kind of swapped it out. It's like, oh, yeah, this gerbil died, but not really. It was just an accident. They're okay. And I really like the way that they handled that because then, of course, all the kids are like, it's okay. Everything's okay. Look, here he is with this little bandage on his head, but they just swapped them out.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's like this type of thing could happen if you have a Stephanie there, or, God forbid there just happened to be an accident. Let's say Elijah did set it up wrong, or let's say the gerbil decided not to step on the trap door. There was a lot of other space in that box. He could have dropped down and ran away from the trap door. All kinds of other things could have happened that made it that Joseph just didn't make it.
Yeah, I mean, if we're really to quibble with this episode, and I know we got to suspend disbelief here or there,
Of
but
course, of
there's a quibble to be made that no, at least in my viewpoint, no like self-respecting institution of education is going to be like, here, kid who's not altogether experienced with magic, use the class pet and one of your tricks, hoping that everything goes right. Like, obviously, Elijah cared about Joseph, and it was just a rogue accident caused by Stephanie, but still, I don't know if that happens.
I just, in general, don't like animals being used in magic, anyways. Like, it's not something that they can give permission to do. There's audiences, people yelling, like, it can make them really scared, really nervous. I know, again, with rabbits are seen in the past as like, oh, you'll see a magician like holding them by their ears, which you should never do. It's like one of the most delicate parts of their body.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was just like, oh man, yeah, I'm really surprised that the schools allowing him to do a trick that involves a possible mishap like this. You have a giant mallet that's going to come down. You got to hope that Joseph made it through and Elijah's trick works 100% of the time. And, it may not. Nothing's 100% of the time.
Okay, so here's the other big question is that who out there had like actual in-school talent shows? Because it feels like, okay, good, you did. See, we're having different childhood experiences throughout this video because I did not have a talent show during school. Like there was one put on by like, I don't remember if it was the PTA or some other organization that I did like play piano during, and I did I Just Can't Wait to Be King from The Lion King, and I had a fake Elton John earring in my ear. But like it was, I would be very, very worried about having an in-school talent show. Once again, not a child psychologist, there's the word, but I would be very, very terrified that all the other students would just be like, let's boo him, regardless of if he's good or not.
Yeah, I think for me, we did have in-school talent shows, and parents, if they were able to, were allowed to come as well. And I mean, it was at about that age, so there wasn't all like that. I never really saw anything like that happen. The teachers were all there, some parents were there. They would all like clap really loudly. So if somebody was booing, like you weren't really hearing
Okay.
it. But I didn't like it because I don't like to be up in front of like the public in any kind of way, speaking or talent show or whatever, but we were all forced to be part of it. I can't even remember what I did. It's out of my mind, probably some dance routine or something with my buddies, but like I wasn't into that. But I can see why it's a good thing. It can help build some confidence, show up some, why you're special.
Okay, if I was forced to be in a talent show and I didn't want to be up there, this would be what I would do. Hi, that's my talent. I'm a good greeter. And then I would just walk off the stage.
Oh, that's not true. You play saxophone.
Listen, I'm saying if I didn't want to be up there, like, me
Oh.
now, I would just go up there and do dumb impressions. And if they didn't laugh at them, I would be like, I am staying on stage until you laugh, darn it.
Wow.
But no, I really enjoyed the buildup of everything. And I was even fully all in on this episode before Charlie even showed up, which is pretty rare, but also pretty exciting.
I loved that we saw Margo Martindale. She's someone
Yes.
that both of us really like. And the twist that Stephanie like was holding pictures over this principal of the school and actually made her a friendship bracelet that was like, you're mine. And that this principal was afraid of Stephanie to the point that she's like, meet me in the bathroom, Charlie. I'll show you the file. And Stephanie's even in there as well. It was so well done. Even seeing Charlie having to change her BS in the way that she says it, it reminded me a bit of The Good Place, where
Yeah.
when you go to The Good Place, you cannot be swearing there. They change what you say into something that's a little more kid friendly.
All of this was just gold, like from start to finish. Yeah, the idea that there's a child who's holding something over the person responsible for the whole school, it's hilarious, it's diabolical, and I think at a certain point, like, yeah, there's always that nagging thing in your head of like, oh, would whether or not this would actually happen. But at the end of the day with this episode, like, I just got to a point where I didn't care anymore, and I was just sort of sitting back and being like, okay, how's Charlie gonna find a way out of this? And I think what made it interesting to me anyway was that this actually felt like one of the harder cases for her to solve, because at one point she actually loses her job and then she's fully reliant on other people. I mean, including the teacher, the other kids, everybody else when it comes to this foolproof, we're going to introduce a new Joseph plan, because you got to get Stephanie so riled up that she actually goes and allows herself to get caught.
Yeah, it was very, very different because Charlie did have proof at one point. Watching Stephanie just swallow that button, I was like, oh my goodness, okay. But now that she didn't have any proof, she had to come up with something and just catch her in the act, continuing to do it. And while it feels like there's not really a lot of consequences that are probably going to happen, it is kind of this like more private-y type school. I'm sure her parents will just pay her way through it to stay or whatever. It'll all work out anyways. It felt satisfying the way that it all came about, where Charlie just caught her in the same way that she's been holding things over other people.
Yeah, I just feel like coming out of this, at the very least, poor Elijah ends up being vindicated and that he's going to be able to move forward. And I think a lot of these kids, kids can be awful. Like, we're well aware of that. But I think once these kids understand, like, they will be forgiving of him. And I think they will try to embrace him on some level. And yeah, the punishment for Stephanie is probably not going to be as severe because of her privilege, because of where she's going to school and all of that. But I do think at the very least, she will be ostracized completely by these classmates. Like, in my head, the future of her story is that she ends up transferring to some other school. She's able to quote unquote start brand new, but she's never going to forget about Charlie. And that's where we get to what you brought up earlier, this idea that at some point she will probably just be training and preparing for this moment. Like, I don't know if she's ever going to be able to lure Charlie back. She might just have to wait until she's in the general vicinity.
I like your look into the future better than what I think is going to happen with Stephanie, who is a little bee right now, and she's going to turn into an adult bee later. I don't think she's going to learn anything from this, that it's just going to continue on. She's just going to kind of get worse as she grows up.
Yeah, this is what's really hard is like whether or not somebody like her can end up learning anything, because it's going to be based on like, okay, what do her parents think about this? Are they going to enable this? Is their institution going to? It's just like there's a lot of different variables that just make this so different. But I mean, by virtue of that, like so interesting compared to, the average episode.
And then we have, of course, a little bit more with Good Buddy, who is seeming like he probably is a good buddy. They're starting to get to know each other just a little bit more, which is nice because I feel like we're building towards something with Good Buddy where Good Buddy is going to get in some sort of trouble or something, and Charlie's going to go to him and try to help out in any way, or they're going to run into each other in some way and he's going to be in trouble. I think we're going to end the season, or we're going to get near the end of the season where Good Buddy's going to show up. You're not going to have Steve Buscemi on the show and we're never going to see him.
Yeah.
I feel like Good Buddy is going to be in some sort of trouble, and because Charlie's made such a good relationship with him, she's going to find him and help him.
Yeah, that's 100% what I think is going to happen. It's just like, I don't need Charlie to be betrayed by some like shocking twist for Good Buddy's not a buddy. I want
Yeah.
her to have a friend. And I think that Steve Buscemi, yeah, he's good at playing bad guys, but I think he's
Yep.
also good at playing good guys. Like,
He
there's
is.
just this like natural warmth that exudes from him and even his voice. So we're kind of just taking our time, seeing this relationship formulate. And I'm fine to go on a long ride here with Good Buddy just because the cases we're getting along the way are just so good. And maybe I'd feel differently if we were getting a bunch of duds, but we're not.
No, we're not.
But that is where we are with Poker Face Season 2, Episode 6. Tell your friends to watch. It feels like there need to be more people checking this out because it is really for everybody. And I just don't know why it doesn't get more conversation.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that this show does not get more conversation. There is so much to talk about.
Yeah.
The show is so good.
Yeah, and this episode is just funny and memorable. Like, I'm going to watch it again at some point. But of course, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our other Poker Face coverage, as well as 9 Perfect Strangers. And as Jess said earlier, Dexter Resurrection is coming very soon.
Mhm.
And you can support us further by joining our Patreon. That link is in the description. We're covering exclusively there Murderbot as well as Criminal Minds Evolution. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you here next time.